in Susquehanna Township coming up on Thursday night, 7:30 here on ABC 27. And again, we remind you, we have a full slate of action. This year, we're completely live, and we're very excited about that.
Well, I'll tell you what live is. Not only it's more pressure on the players, it's more pressure on the announcers, but Hershey features a 6'8" Matt Banis that's getting a lot better year after year. A.J. Dean, who averaged 17 a game last year and 10 boards. It's going to be an exciting matchup on Thursday night at Susquehanna.
All right, Charlie, thanks, and thanks to our Invicta Sports crew led by Chad Edwards, our director. Coming up next, we're going to continue our Arlington Orthopedic Spotlight. Dr. Michael Cordes talks with Charlie more about concussions and those great Joe Paterno stories. Again, we'll see you on Thursday night. Greg Mace for Charlie Fortney. So long from Trinity High School.
Welcome to Up Close and Personal with Arlington Orthopedic. I am Charlie Fortney. I'll be your host, and I am privileged to have Dr. Michael Cordes here today to talk about concussions in sports. Dr. Cordes was a member of the Governor Council of Physical Fitness in Sports in Pennsylvania. He is the chairman of the Advisory Medical Committee for the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association, a member of the Pennsylvania Athletic Commission, an advisory member of the National Athletic Trainers Association, and the Pennsylvania Athletic Trainers Society, in which he was inducted recently into the Hall of Fame. Dr. Cordes, welcome to the show. You have been doing this a long time, and the list of your accomplishments goes on and on. Is there any recognition you received that is more special than the other?
Well, I think to be recognized by a group of people that I have been working with for the past 30 years, and I'm talking about the athletic trainers, I think that recognition was fantastic, being put into their Hall of Fame, and it was a wonderful feeling because I've been with them since their infancy, and I've watched them grow through a lot of different things, and finally get to the point where now they're under the direction of the Board of Medicine in the state of Pennsylvania. So we are working with a good group of people, and I really appreciate that induction.
Well, we appreciate you being on the show. Our topic today is concussions in sports. First off, help us understand what defines a true concussion.
Well, you know, they've been trying to figure that question out for the past 30 to 40 years. I kind of use a definition when I teach my residents. I tell them that a concussion basically is a disruption of the electrical impulse of the brain. That's all it is. It's a shutdown of the brain. It's temporary. It can be rather significant, or it can be a little bit more decreased in nature and cause. But I think that that pretty much defines it. That you just have a temporary disruption, and then the person comes back to normal. But it takes a little bit more time to come back to completely normal.
I've read recently that they've gotten away from grading concussions. Can you talk about that?
Well, we used to grade these concussions, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. And then we had the international conference in Switzerland concerning concussions, where there were probably the best people in the world talking about concussions. And basically we've come to the premise that all concussions are severe. I don't care if it's a ding in the head, so to speak, or it's someone that's unconscious. Every individual that has a concussion has it in a different way and will respond to the concussion in a different way. That's why it's so important to understand that all concussions are significant and severe.
Well, you lead me to an example of something that happened in my own coaching experience. A young man got elbowed in the ear. It wasn't even the head. Coach says, "Are you all right?" He says, "Absolutely, I'm fine." He's 16 years old. He leaves, he gets in a car and drives home, and the parents later on found that he was dizzy, took him to the hospital, he had a concussion. Is that a rarity, or is this happening more than people think?
Actually, there's probably 250,000 concussions reported each year to us. That's only the top of the iceberg. It has nothing to do with the number of concussions. Most people have concussions and don't even know they have them. In fact, on the football field, the basketball court, or even the wrestling match, we'll see people that have concussions that don't even know they had it. It's their player, one of their friends or something, says, "Hey, you know, Jimmy's acting a little strange out there. Maybe you ought to talk to him because he's running his plays backwards. He's not doing what he's supposed to do." So, yeah, the concussions are entirely different in each individual. For a person to go home after receiving a blow to the head and suddenly develop signs and symptoms of concussion is not abnormal. As a matter of fact, that is the norm.
There seems to be a lot of opinion in the information I've read on concussions. How do the doctors at Arlington Orthopedic handle concussions? Is there a general philosophy that all of the doctors share?
Every year before the season starts, I'm primary care sports medicine. Dr. Ackerman is an associate of mine, and he is sports medicine orthopedics. We have a discussion with all of the residents at the hospital. There's over 20 of them that we just sit down and discuss what a concussion is, how it needs to be dealt with. The thing you have to remember about concussion, the younger the individual, the more significant the concussion, the longer it can last, the more significant it can be in depth and in breadth of the concussion. So we discuss that, and we all have an idea of what to do. When it comes to an individual who's a teeny bopper and he or she has a concussion, you need to be conservative because this kid has to live with that brain for the rest of his or her life.
We're talking about sports, but are most of your patients non-athletes who come in for concussions?
Well, you have another situation entirely, and that situation is called the industrial athlete. That's the individual that's out there doing a job for a purposeful end and getting paid to do that job, who bumps his head, who falls down, breaks a leg, who twists an ankle, et cetera, et cetera. These are the type of people that we see at Arlington. We look at not only the athlete, and we see a lot of athletes, but we also look at the individual that has a work-related injury. Right. We look at an individual that was shoveling the snow down the other day and ends up with significant back pain. We look at an individual that is in an automobile wreck who becomes injured, who also needs orthopedic consultation. So we see a tremendous number of people from very different sources of life, not just athletes.
Many people and players who experience a concussion may not show clear signs right away. What are some symptoms that may linger as time goes on?
The most common symptom is, first of all, dizziness. You have headaches. You may vomit. You may not be able to concentrate at all. You may not know where you're at. There's all kinds of symptoms that you can have. The thing is, you want to make sure that those symptoms are gone before you start doing anything. Now, there is a thing which is called post-concussive syndrome. Post-concussive syndrome means after a concussion, you suddenly start to keep some of these symptoms, and they may last 3 to 6 months. Somebody that can't study, somebody that can't concentrate, somebody that's not sleeping at night the way they should, somebody that doesn't like noise, somebody that doesn't like light outside. There's a whole bunch of things that you can run into, and you have to be aware that they're there. And the parents need to know, if anything is different about my kid, I need to report that to someone.
Can diagnosing a concussion be left up to a student trainer, or should every school have a doctor on staff?
We have a relationship with probably 8 to 10 schools in the area, including Lebanon Valley College and Penn State down in Harrisburg, including the professional teams in the area. So we have a bunch of people that we take care of. We work with these individuals and we try to educate. The trainers are all well-educated trainers. They're all very good trainers that we work with. One of the things we do in sports medicine, or I should say we will not do in sports medicine, is work with a school district that doesn't have an athletic trainer.
That's good.
Yeah, you get a situation. School districts very often will say, we cannot afford to have an athletic trainer. Well, today, as significant as we are legally in sports medicine, you can't afford not to have a trainer. The athletic trainer is your first line of defense. When it comes to calling a concussion and allowing someone to go back in, that's the physician's call.
Yeah, and I would assume that there's only so much you want someone on the sideline to do that's not a doctor anyway, that the trainers, talk about what those certified trainers are taught so that they can do the right thing for that athlete.
The certified athletic trainer in the state of Pennsylvania goes through very rigid evaluations, testing, et cetera, through the NATA, National Association of Trainers. They go through all types of very significant evaluations, how to do this, how to do that, and they work very closely with the physician. Now, most of the schools in this area have a team physician associated with them. The team physician with the athletic trainer makes the whole team safer, makes it easier for the kids to get back into play after an injury, and has a great deal to do with the prevention of injuries.
That led to my next question. What can the coaches do? Naturally, changing the rules of the game, I mean, that may never happen because of the history, but what can the coaches do in that practice atmosphere? Because I'm thinking a lot of this happens in practice too.
70% of all injuries occur in practice. Now, the difference being that in a game there's a lot less injuries, but 80% of the injuries in a game are significant. So the majority of injuries at practice are not, but concussions are common. We have to teach us. In 1976, they came out with a non-spearing rule. You cannot headbutt, you cannot use the top of your helmet to inflict injury on another individual. And they're pretty much following those today. The coaches need to continue to do that. I don't know if it's necessary. I mean, I've worked with a lot of different schools. I don't know if it's necessary to have complete contact every day of the week.
Right.
The more contact you have, obviously, the more probability of significant injuries that you can occur. So I'm not so sure that's the right thing to do, but I'm not a coach. I look at this from a very realistic medical aspect. If you have less contact, less collision, and football is a collision sport. Dancing is a contact sport, okay?
Oh, hockey.
So there's a difference. Yeah, hockey, yeah. Those are collision sports. The less collision you have in regards to practices, the less chance of injury. The less you teach your kids to hit with a helmet, the less chance of injury. And the NFL is coming right on board with that now. I mean, they're putting people fines out there, $70,000 for trying to damage somebody by means of a helmet hit.
Talk about basketball. I mean, who says it's a contact sport? Well, I do. I played it.
It's not contact, it's another collision sport.
Yeah. Collision, yeah. And there's no equipment when you're on the basketball court. And I can count at least 5 concussions that I've seen in the kids that I've been around just over the last 3 years. I mean, do you have many treatments for kids and concussions when they play basketball?
Fortunately, we have less with basketball than we do with football, only because there are more players in football. I mean, you got 22 people out in the field in football. You don't have that many when you're playing basketball. But the ones that we do see, yeah, we see them, and we see them under the basket. You know as well as I do, there's a lot of elbowing under there, and punching and everything else. And as long as the referee doesn't catch it, it's okay to do it, you know?
Speaking of the idea of concussions in the high schools, there was a recent example with Clayton McNair at Steele High, and it was a tremendous blessing that Dr. Ackerman and the Arlington group was supporting the high school at that time. Talk about how having Dr. Ackerman there helped Clayton in that situation.
I think it was very fortunate that he was there. That could have turned out significantly worse than it did. Actually, it turned out quite well. His unconsciousness obviously was due to a formation of a significant concussion, which actually caused some bleeding into the brain itself. That goes with probably a 40 to 70% chance of not coming out of it. So Dr. Ackerman being on the sidelines and doing immediate care for that individual insofar as making sure he didn't move, insofar as turning his head to the side because he was also throwing up, insofar as watching him very carefully because often you have a neck injury associated with a concussion, and getting the ambulance back as quickly as possible was essential for that young man to still be here.
Being the doctor for Penn State's football team at one point, did you see more concussions at the collegiate level of football versus high school? What's the difference?
There's very definitely a difference. The higher level athlete, when we talk about people over the age of 20, concussions are going to be there, but they're not as significant as they are in a younger kid. The younger kid's developmental. Brains, everything is still growing. And because of that, they don't have the coordination that the kid has in college. They don't have the musculature to hold the neck in position. We do know that a person who's young, who has weak neck, is more subject to concussions. So these kids that are over the age of 20, yeah, they get concussions, and we sit them out, but they usually recover a little quicker.
Okay, everybody that's worked around Joe Paterno, Papa Joe, needs to tell that Joe Paterno story. What's yours?
I think my favorite one, I was up there for maybe about 4 days, and one of our college players, of all things, had a concussion. So he's standing alongside of me on the field, and the coach comes out. The coach is walking around looking at everybody. He was having a bad day. And he looked over and he saw this player standing with me. And he hollers across Haluba. We were practicing at Haluba at the time. "Doc, what's the matter with him?" I says, "Well, he's got a concussion, Coach." "What do you mean concussion?" I says, "Got a head injury." "Oh, what's that mean?" "My day, go back in the game." I says, "Not today, Coach." "What do you mean?" He said, "Can he walk?" "Nope." "Can he run?" "Nope." "Can't do anything?" "Nope." He says, "Well, I don't understand." I says, "Coach, you take care of your job, I'll take care of mine."
4 days. 4 days at Penn State.
4 days at Penn State. Yeah. With that, he comes across the field, and he's not walking; he's running. All of Haluba shut down. Nobody said a word, and I'm thinking, "Oh my, here we are, 4 days into this, and I'm going to have Penn State's coach take a swing at me." ran right up to me, looked at me, and said, "Ah, nuts," turned around and walked away. That was the only time I had any kind of confrontation with Coach Paterno.
I mean, you experienced what some of those Big Ten officials have been experiencing.
Oh, my. He can really get in your face.
Something.
Quite a guy.
Dr. Cordes, thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.
And we
It's a pleasure.
appreciate having you.